Hello. I want to talk to you really quickly about crying and tears and sadness. Isn't that super encouraging? Just, we all do cry. We all feel like crying. I know whenever I was expecting my baby, I felt like crying all the time. And then soon thereafter, after I had her, I felt like crying all the time. Not felt like crying, but just easily, wept easily, kind of felt like crying. No real good reason to cry, but just kind of felt like felt like I'd feel better if I cried. All you men that don't understand that, sorry. But anyway, but my thought that I wanted to convey to you was sometimes when we cry, we feel bad about it, or we grieve, or you try to explain away why you're crying. But I've learned in life that there are some things that are worth crying about. When someone dies, someone leaves, someone you're hurting, there's some things of loss that are worth shedding a tear over. It's okay. You can cry. You don't have to feel bad about it. You don't have to apologize for it. That's what makes us human. That's what shows that something has value. I want people to cry at my funeral because I want them to miss me. Do I want them to go into depression and utter despair? No, but if nobody ever misses you, maybe you weren't that important to them. Anyway, I digress. But if you're crying, here's the ticket of why I think that indulging our tears too much can become dangerous. Because your tears, while they are so justified and you have a good reason to cry, I'm not going to argue that with you. That is indisputable fact that there are reasons to cry. But when we begin to cry and that world of sadness and darkness and rain cloud, if you will, begins to consume us to where that's all we think about and we cry all the time or too long, what became an innocent, justifiable emotion crosses over or slips into the murky territory of depression, fear, despair, and gloom. And it's a very difficult place to come out of. It's a very dangerous place. Some people never recover from it. It's like if you allow yourself to slip into that dark place. We can go there, we can cry, but pretty soon thereafter, after you've had your cry, you need to turn your tears into prayer and cry out to the Lord and ask Him to help you. Cry your tears, but don't stay there too long. Because what was once a pure, honest human emotion, we can stay there a little bit too long and it begins to consume us and become very dangerous. So I want to encourage you to cry your tears. It's okay. But don't stay there too long, because even though you have good reason, it could turn into something very dangerous. I know if I indulged my grief and my sadness, I know when my brother passed, I know that my mother deals with this on a regular basis, that, sometimes you just want to cry about it still. And that's okay. Cry about it. But if we just indulge that and we open those floodgates and surrender ourselves to it completely, and we become of no worth. We just get sucked into that tunnel and life becomes about that big, becomes about that one thing. But the truth is life is so much more than that. And if I'm not going too long, I want to share with you briefly a thing called the circle of grief that will help you deal with some things. That someone shared this with me when my brother passed several years ago, and it really, really helped me. And what it was is, I guess a counselor had shared it with her. I probably messed it up, but this is my interpretation that has morphed over the years. The circle of grief is a circle, but the center of the circle is that moment of impact, the moment you heard the news, when you experienced the loss, that devastation, where you were just like fully aware of your loss and you were devastated. Okay, that's the center of the circle, is the heart of your loss. And that's whenever nothing else is in your viewfinder. It's just that, and you're saddened about it and you're crying. Well, as time passes, okay, let's say it just happened. You just got the news that someone very important to you has passed away. Okay, you're in that circle. You're living in that circle. Every 5 minutes, you are right there in that circle. But as time begins to pass, you can function. You do some things. You go to the store, you run some errands, you make some phone calls, and you're like, oh, I'm totally fine. And then bam, you're right back at the center of the circle. Okay, that trip around the circle was short because it just happened. And it's going to feel like it just happened every time you go back to center. But then time begins to pass and the circles around the center become bigger. And you begin to travel around the circle of grief. And you're having a great time. You're back at work now. Everything's going fine. Then you hear a song. You see a car. You see a picture. You see their name. Boom. You immediately go all the way back to the center of your grief, like it just happened. You fall apart. You have a breakdown. And you're like, I was just fine. Well, that's okay. The good news is that the trips around the circle, they become longer, and your stops become few and far between. You know what I mean? So you're going around the circle longer, and when you go back, you don't stay there as long as you did at the beginning. So you will always, there is no getting over it. There is no, oh, it's better now. I'm totally healed. No. It's just your circles get bigger. Years could have gone by and you're just, everything is fine, everything's great. And then here comes Christmas. Boom, you're right back to the center of the circle. But you're not going to live there. You're not going to stay there. You're going to visit that place because that is a very real and tender, permanent scar for you. But you pick yourself up. You know, okay, it's time to get back on that circle again of life, not death, and go around the circle and you go about your business, and whatever trigger that is, it brings you back. You're always going to come back to home base. But you're not going to go there as often, and you're not going to stay there as long. So be comforted that there is a healing. The circles do get bigger and bigger, and we never know really what's going to trigger us back to that moment of hurt and pain. But when we get there, don't stay there. That circle will consume you, and you will become depressed and focused in on the wrong things. So I don't know who this is for, but I just want to encourage you, cry when you need to cry. Don't stay there. And if you've had a tragedy in your life, begin to enjoy the trips around the circle, and hopefully they'll get bigger and bigger, and God will hold your hand the whole way through, even whenever you go back to the center and you're broken all over again. You won't stay there forever, and you won't be back again as often. So be blessed, be encouraged, and let Him be the lifter of your head and encourage you. It's okay to cry. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not, but let's not indulge it too greatly because, we do have hope. And we should never be in despair as long as we have the Spirit of God living within us. And that is all.